The new NBA media rights deal with Chris Bevilacqua. But, Michael, I want to start with you here because you wanted to talk about the way this deal is structured.
Bob, I think one of the really interesting things about this is if you look at the actual league reports and what the rating agencies are looking at when they value this deal is they're differentiating between what's going to the NBA teams and in terms of what's going to the league as a whole. And what I'm driving at is there's about $1 billion over the 9-year life of this deal that is not going to the teams, but is really being valued towards the WNBA, the NBA's development league. Now, why that's so important is because that $1 billion, as per the league's collective bargaining agreement, doesn't have to be shared with the players, right? And they get about half of all league revenue. I think that was a very, very smart move by the NBA.
Yeah, it can't be coincidence, right?
No, I mean, if you're looking at the way they structure these deals, I mean, they have to take some portion of it and invest into new properties and new products, which really is good for everybody. You want to grow the game globally, and you want to get it to some of the smaller markets, which is what the D-League is. You want to get women's basketball more heavily promoted. So I think all those things are good for the sport of basketball.
All right, now for Turner and ESPN, we talked about some of the components. They also get more games, by the way, which in today's age of what's DVR-proof, right, more games, that's just one part of it, though.
Yeah, no, they got more tonnage. I think ESPN now has 100 games. I think Turner got another dozen or so games. So they got more product, more live game product. They got more exclusive windows. I think, importantly, ESPN got a lot of tonnage. They got another 750 hours of year-round NBA driven programming. Turner got more rights around the All-Star game. They got, I think, an award show, an NBA-themed award show. So I think, in general, these guys did a great job of getting more rights, but they paid a lot more money for those rights.
Yeah, you know what's also interesting about that, too? 2 years from now, the NBA could have become essentially a free agent, put themselves up for auction. They decided to stay with the partners that they knew and just extend their deal.
Yeah, I think they might have gotten a little bit more money had they waited. You could have brought in some other networks to compete. But at the same time, they're getting a great deal. And that certainty, I think, is really important. I think it's hard to value that certainty. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, said he doesn't think they left any money on the table. And I happen to think he's right. And I think if you're Steve Ballmer and you're looking at the $2 billion you paid for the Clippers not that long ago, it's starting to move towards, where it's looking like his price wasn't that crazy, right, with this TV deal. Because people were originally talking about the deal doubling, going from $930 to, maybe $2 billion. This is well above that. So I think on the upside there, Ballmer's got to be pretty happy.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Chris, the other thing, too, is maybe if they did leave, let's say, $1 billion or $2 billion on the table, maybe they make that up in the over-the-top or somewhere else, the global appeal and growth of the league over the next 10 years.
I think, Mike's exactly right. I mean, for the 2 years of whatever was going to happen, that's kind of the known unknowns or the unknown unknowns over the next couple of years, taking the deal and getting it in place now, having an over-the-top element that is clearly going to look different over the next couple of 3 years as more HBOs and more CBSs come out with their own products, I think is a very, very smart move. Had they had to wait a couple of years to get to that point, they might have been in a catch-up position.
Yeah, and I think the other area where some people have been a little critical, some of the players, I should say, is, they're talking about how in the next CBA, they're going to demand a little bit more money. They felt they gave away too much, going from 57% of revenue to 50%. But, on the other hand, I don't know if they didn't have that long-term CBA, would they have been in as good a position to get this type of TV deal?
That's precisely right. I mean, the owners and the players together were able to take their new long-term collective bargaining agreement and assure all the bidders, in this case ESPN and Turner, that they were going to be locked in for X number of years, and that's what created all this tripling of value. And so if you just did some quick math, right, from $930 to $2.6 billion, that's another $1.5 billion, right, of incremental revenue, half of which is going to the players.
Yeah, so they're talking about, from this.
That, to me, is a pretty good deal.
So should the NBA be concerned, though, that two of their lead players, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, have been kind of vocal about opening up the CBA in a couple of years, maybe, when they have the right to do that, and changing some of the terms?
Well, I think it's sort of inevitable, right? If they had that reopener there, it was in place simply because I'm sure everybody just couldn't forecast that far out. And so it'd be a surprise to me if both sides weren't willing to, kind of relook at where they were 3 years from now.
Yeah, and also, the CBA is going to go from like 65 million, the salary cap, I should say, 65 million this year, to maybe the first year of the TV deal, 83, 84 million. So they're not going to be doing that bad. And by the way, what opportunities does this do to grow revenues internationally?
I think, too. I mean, I know ESPN had a series of incremental rights in their international packages, but, over in China and all the Asian countries, Latin America, I think there's a lot of growth for the global sport of basketball. And, the NBA is very well adept at selling those kinds of rights country by country like they've done in the past. And I think there's a lot of upside there.
So we don't like to do a lot of predicting on the show, Chris, but you think 10 years from now, more international, see a lot of logos on the jerseys, that type of thing, maybe?
I do. I think, if the NBA now is a $7 or $8 billion a year industry, it would seem to me it wouldn't be crazy to think that they could double that in another 5 or 10 years.